Alright, lads. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be going down deep into the mines. We're going to be accessing a brand new tunnel, deep within the earth, to find the lost and ancient podcast. We must seize this from the dark powers for ourselves and add it to our treasure hoards. This podcast we search for is the Chaos Divided, hosted by Nurgle Snurgle and Blushin' Noise Marine. Now, get your pickaxes, get your mead, and let's get cracking.
Welcome to Chaos Divided, your weekly dose of Wholesome Hammer. If you're a fan of what we do, we hope you'll subscribe and follow us along. And if you'd like to support us directly, you can find us on patreon.com/chaosdivided40k. This week, we're chatting with our very special guest, JT McDowell from PlayOn Tabletop. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
And the quote that he chose, quite simple but very effective, is "Fear is the mind killer."
Frank Herbert, Dune.
Mm-hmm.
I read it when I was a preteen, actually. And that always stuck with me. Whenever I got scared, whenever I got worried, whenever I had those moments of doubt. The Litany Against Fear is this interesting little poem that he wrote explaining the power of control over their bodies that the Bene Gesserit have in his stories. And it's actually really appropriate. I mean, if you ever find yourself in a moment where you're overwhelmed, taking a couple of deep breaths, saying a rhyme, whatever it is, and then looking back at what just caused that and naming it is a big deal and helps you kind of move on through your day. And we all deal with anxiety every day, and that fear is the mind killer is one of my favorite quotes, because it is true. It really is. Fear is the mind killer. Bravery is not absence of fear. It's overcoming fear. And it's something that everybody has to face every day, and we all understand it. And if we all understand each other a little bit better, the world becomes a little better place.
We all just gotta admit, we're all just a little bit fearful.
It's okay. It's natural.
Yeah, you talked about that the Space Marines are absent of fear. Are they designed that way?
They are. I mean, in the lore, they talk about how often you hear the phrase, "they shall know no fear."
Mm-hmm.
So we take that to understand that they are not fearless. They have no fear. Being fearless is avoiding the effects of fear. I mean, you don't let fear slow you down. The Marines don't feel it. They have no concept of it. They're very Tyranid-like in that. They don't have fear. So if you have no fear, are you really brave? You're not overcoming anything. You're not doing anything special. A guardsman that charges a demon prince, that's brave. It's a little stupid, but it depends how sharp his shovel is, right? That's what the important thing.
Maybe there's the one las gun that's going to get through. Come on, you got to take the risk.
After
That's
the
all it
99
takes.
other ones.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, everybody's got to roll boxcars once in a while, right?
Statistically, right?
It works. Unless you're, poor Steve on the channel. As long as the cameras are rolling, Steve can't roll dice. But when they're off, the guy's a magician. Not when they're on. It's really funny to watch.
See, I didn't know that. So if you're at a tournament with Steve, is it like hot rolls the whole time?
He's average to above average, I would say. Like there's nothing particularly special about Steve's rolls. They can go hot, they can go cold, but when Steve is on camera, Steve rolls like yesterday's news. Like it's atrocious. Do you remember the movie Anchorman?
Yes.
Do you remember the description of the Cologne Sex Panther? 60% of the time it works every time, right?
Yes.
And the brilliant, colorful descriptions of what that odor was. That's like the time we got the raccoon caught in the copier. That smells like a diaper full of Indian food. Like that's how bad his rolls are. They're atrocious. They will clear a room like nobody wants to get near it, and it's just because the cameras are on. Shut the cameras off.
Your rolls stink.
They're that bad, and it's gobsmacking to watch it happen, because it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if he's trying to roll a 3-inch charge, he'll roll a 2.
That's brutal.
And then re-roll it to another 2.
Yeah, it's atrocious. And it's statistically one of the guys in our Patreon, I think it's Jin Sheep. He has collated what the rolls are, but Steve's rolls, even though they seem atrocious, are actually average. But it's his rolls when it's important aren't there. They're gone. And it's literally because the camera's on. I feel so bad for him because I've played him other times. He's kicked my butt. Cameras are on. Done. Forget it. It's over.
Camera gods.
Yarp.
Well, before we get in too deep, would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Sure, absolutely. I am JT, the voice of PlayOn Tabletop. We've been doing that for about 5 years, heading into season 6 in March. There's going to be some stuff going on that I can't really talk about yet, but trust me, it's going to be cool. You can check us out on PlayOn Tabletop on YouTube. We've got a Patreon. We've got all the jazz you need. Our Discord is amazingly cool. You can join that. That'd be cool and fun and support us. You can also find me at JT Custom Paintworks. I spell it with K's because K's are cool and funny, as we discussed earlier. That hard K sound is my favorite. And I might be a bit of a Craftwork fan because I'm that old, so... you can find my stuff there. I'm not really that good at posting on Instagram because I'm an old man and I tend to shout at clouds rather than take pictures of what I'm doing. That said,
just take a picture of you shouting at a post.
I've done it. Yeah.
Oh.
or shouting at dice rolls. I've done that. Shouting at models. Yeah. But yeah, you can find us at PlayOn Tabletop where we cover 40K in 40 minutes is our premier product. That's typically the one that I'm doing the audio for, but we do all sorts of stuff. We just did a Kickstarter for Bloodthrone Tower Sacrifice, a new game from Frontline Gaming. Absolutely amazing game. Totally psyched for this. I am not a Kickstarter guy in general, but I'm absolutely backing this project. It is that cool. The models are done by Creature Caster. The gameplay is fantastic, quick and simple. Oh yeah, there's such a great company to work with. I've got a bunch of their models. We've worked with them before on Judgment. So we kind of do it all, but primarily 40K is our sort of mainstay.
So is it going to be like big models from Creature Caster, or they're going more?
Yeah, there are. So you've got... Is it 7 heroes, 10 heroes? I can't remember how many hero models are in there. Then there's monsters. Then there's the villains. Then there's the big bad. Then there's a bunch of stuff. It's on Kickstarter. I think it dropped today. Today's we're recording this on the 18th. So I think it just dropped today. But yeah, no, it's really, really cool. And the gameplay is PvP or PvE, so you can play against it. Like Gloomhaven style. You have missions you need to go through, and you get things that happen, and then there's sort of an XCOM pressure mechanic where if you don't do specific missions, your whole campaign can be derailed. There's leveling with your characters. It's a really cool concept, and Maurice has been developing it for about the last 5 years, so I'm really excited about that one. That's sort of on my radar right now. But yeah, we kind of do everything from promos to 40K to Star Wars to Old World we're starting to get into now because that's just coming out. So I'm so excited. My dwarfs aren't in it though. I'm so sad.
What are you going to be playing?
Honestly, dwarves. Like, there's got to be a way to get
comes out.
Yeah, it's got to be the Dawi. I want to say 30 Thunderers, like the old pewter Thunderers.
Wow.
And they're all painted with kilts.
Cute.
I painted the hand-painted kilts on all of them.
That's awesome.
Like full
lines.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you hold your breath as you?
It is funny as I got older and my eyes got worse because you get old and that happens. It got harder and harder to do. But now I found this cool thing called a magnifying glass. I can see again. Yes. And I'm like, wow, that was really a shaky line. But yeah, no, it's the dwarves. I've always loved the concept of the dwarf army because they're just grumpy and stubborn. I mean, hello, look at me. I'm 5'10", tall and wide. Like I'm a dwarf. I get this. And they've always been a fun army to play with because they have, like in old fantasy, they had a close combat mechanic and they had a range mechanic. So they could kind of do both. They just took a while to get there. Some armies like elves were all slinging magic and moving quick, and that's fun. Dark elves had their ridiculous repeating bolt throwers and such. But the dwarves could just tank it. And the cool part about them is they could actually walk across the field and take the punishment because they were so tough. and it was a lot of fun to play. I mean, kind of one-sided, sure. It's fantasy. It's rank and flank. It hasn't existed really for a while, and I'm really excited. The new mechanics seem very familiar, so I'm really, really, really happy to be jumping on that.
Awesome. Are they projecting to have dwarves in the future?
As I understand it, all of the old world races will be replaced. So you're not necessarily going to be able to use your old models, though I'm sure local tournaments will allow them. But they will eventually have resculpts for everything, which I'm kind of sad about and I'm excited for. I've been around this hobby long enough to remember some of the original sculpts and the atrociousness of them. The giant hands and the giant heads, and so bad. But the new plastic sculpts that they've come out with, I mean, they're gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Like that Imperial, that Revenant Titan you did stomping on Shalaxi Hellbane. Oh my gosh, so cool. But you look at it and you go, like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have had that. Even 10 years ago, you wouldn't have had something that looks that cool. And the Revenant is a really old sculpt, but the addition of this Shalaxi suddenly it just looks completely different and updates the heck out of it.
I guess my lens, my eyes don't see that, but someone who's been in the hobby for so long can. And yeah, that's a really interesting take on it. I can say like painting or dealing with that resin, that was my first time dealing with like Forge World type of models, and it was not a fun time.
Got to wear a mask because the dust is severely carcinogenic. You have to make sure to clean your workspace up. It's a real pain.
Luckily, I didn't have to do that part, but it was just like more like the super gluing of it. You can't just.
Oh, you actually use super glue?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What should I have used?
The look on JT's face right now.
So as somebody who's done this a lot, the problem with that model and the resin is that super glue eventually gets brittle and it breaks.
Okay.
Whereas if you go with like a 5-minute epoxy, and there's a secret, so you pin the joints and you super glue the pins and you surround the joint with epoxy. So then you have the super glue instantly holds the pins together and keeps the pins in, and then that epoxy resin holds the two pieces together. You have to score the surfaces a bit to get the resin in there.
Yeah.
But that resin will hold far superior to a super glue.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if it breaks, it breaks. You super glue it, whatever.
Yeah.
But I've built enough resin models to know that 5-minute epoxy, man, that stuff is magic. Amazing. And now it's so cheap. Dollar store, right? Yes. And it still holds like crazy.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know for the next time. And anyone that's listening, that's some great advice.
It's just because it's resin, and resin is and the old resin specifically. The new resins are markedly better to deal with, but still, epoxy is your best friend. It's just a pain to work with.
It was also just like a very awkward model. It's so top heavy. He's on stilts, so
those legs are so crazy long.
Yeah.
Mine's actually kicking.
Oh, nice.
I like pain. I don't know why I did it. I think originally I was going to have him kicking Gulliman into orbit. Like, and the funny part about posing that, so it's, if you've seen the Revenant on our channel and you look at the pose that it's in, that's a full-on field goal punter, like a field goal kick pose. Like, I had to figure out. I'm standing in my paint room, my hobby room, and I'm trying to pose the legs, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, how does this? And I'm standing there, and I'm like taking pictures of myself and looking at field goal kickers and what angle their bodies are at when they're planting the left foot and kicking with the right foot to make it look proper.
Yes.
And it looks great, but it's seriously balanced on one leg, and one of these days it's going to fall off the shelf and just go totally yard sale. It'll be done.
Oh, just don't be the one.
Get it done.
Yeah. Well, on that happy note, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you approach Warhammer?
Cautiously with a stick. No. I approach. It's funny. I've been playing this game. Good grief. I'm embarrassed to say how long I've been playing this. Probably close to 40 years. That's a long time. So role-playing games and tabletop games, it's probably over 40 years.
Wow.
And I was thinking about this the other day. It was actually my cousins who introduced me. I think I was 8 to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Cute.
And I always wanted to play it from then on. I just always wanted to play it. I was fascinated by this concept. Little background on me. I was the oldest of 2 siblings. My father passed when I was 4. I was a pretty lonely kid. I read a lot. My mom used to read to me all the time. By the time I was before I hit kindergarten, I could read at a grade 8 level.
Wow.
Because my mom spent that time with me. I mean, there used to be a thing called a TV guide that would get mailed out to your house. And that TV guide would tell you what was on your television. Yeah, that's how old I am.
Before Channel 2.
Before Channel 2, before the menu function on your DVR, there was an actual piece of paper, or in the newspaper, it would list what was on the channels on the television. Back when there were only like 13 channels or something, which was that was a lot. But I would read those to her. And I remember sitting on her lap reading those. And by the time I got to school, I read a lot. And I just kept reading and kept reading and kept reading. And the idea of a game where I could create the story with my friends was fascinating to me. I love this idea. So I really kind of threw myself into that. And that sort of developed into the miniature aspect of it, because it's great to use your mind, but it's also really great to actually physically represent what you're doing on a tabletop, on a grid with monsters. And even if it's cardboard cutouts or if it's a repurposed cereal toy, like, it doesn't matter. The imagination is what's driving this. And then that just kind of developed into tabletop gaming. I mean, I think Warhammer Fantasy was first. And then shortly thereafter was 40K. That's got to be about 86, 87, give or take, when Rogue Trader came out. And I remember the Harlequin box when it first came out. And the Harlequin rules were crazy good. This description of the monofilament web and the Harlequin's kiss and the Harlequin caress. I mean, I punch into your armor and unleash a monofilament wire that liquefies your insides, and I pull it back out in your suit of armor with goo pouring out of the hole I just punched in you.
And then you shimmer into the sky.
Right? It was cool. And that just captured my fascination. And I think I played fairly, not as often as I do now, that's for sure. But when I could, until about 2nd edition, took a little bit of a break because, of course, that's when I found dating. That was right? That happens, right? You know, you
made different stories.
Yeah, mid-teens and the hormones take over, and it's like toy soldiers go away for a while. And then 4th, 5th edition is kind of, I guess about 4th edition is sort of where I came back.
And is that your 20s?
No, 5th edition would have been, that's 5 editions ago. It's what, 15, 18 years ago now?
15 years ago, yeah.
15 years ago at least. So that was mid 30s, early 30s. Yeah, I guess it was early 30s. Funny story about that. I had my models and I was playing with them and painting with them and thinking I should really get back into this. I should really do this, because I played a lot of D&D and stuff and bought models to paint for that and was having fun looking at some of my old Warhammer Fantasy stuff. And my buddy's daughter wanted to get into it. And the 5th edition box set had just come out. And I said, oh, cool. Well, I'd like to play too. And it was a question of, well, I can't really afford the box set. I said, well, we'll just split it. Which army do you want to take? She's like, I'll take the Marines. I'm like, okay, I'll take the Orcs. Proceeded to buy 8 more Assault on Blackreach box sets. I have so many Defcopters, because in my day, the only way you could get a Defcopter was metal, and they were plastic, and I'm like, that's so cool. Turn them into bikes, turn them into trikes. I had so much fun with them. Gave some away because I have too many.
Oh my!
And that was kind of the return to it. At the end of 5th, Dark Eldar, I'd always loved my Eldar. Always loved the Dark Eldar. I never really started collecting them. And then kind of wanted to go a new direction because Orcs are a ton of fun. But I'm like, I wouldn't mind a new army. And then it was Dark Eldar. And I put together a list based on the old 3rd edition codex. Okay, here's the stuff I want. And then they announced the new codex. They announced the new Christmas product line. And that just revitalized my interest in all my Dark Eldar. So I could pull out the models I bought new in 1992.
I love
that is a
Hammer.
long served pile of opportunity.
Get it though? It's that's my favorite. I love that phrase. It's not a pile of shame. It's a pile of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, because I've pulled models out and gone, oh, I can have some fun with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still have stuff in blister from '92.
Wow.
Sorry, in what?
In the blister packs. They used to come in cardboard backed plastic blister packs. So it was like a clear plastic shell, and it would just sat on cardboard, and that their model would be in there with a piece of foam. So you could see the model when you pulled it off, the white metal model. I have a few of those.
They're like relics now, though.
Oh, my heart. Yes, they're the old ways, right? They're the ancient ways of things. And every once in a while, when I'm feeling kind of blue, I'll lick them just to get a little bit of lead.
You lick them.
Lick them because it's lead. It's a joke about old lead models. I actually have lead miniatures. That's how old I am. They don't look the same anymore.
Because you lick them so much?
Probably. Because the lead was so soft that if they didn't get looked after, they just got munched. And they just got squished. I have an old Wizard. I think it's the first model I ever painted, and it looks like a blob of goo now because it's just been tossed in boxes. And it's...
Well, you're now a Nurgle something.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Actually, I just got my anniversary, whatever the Warhammer Plus membership reward thing that they send you. You choose what miniature you want. Mm-hmm. I got the one with all the little familiars. Oh, they're so cute. Tiny little Chaos Warrior. It's so awesome. I'm excited.
Anything small is good. Like even the Imperialis. Man, they're so cute. Oh. When we saw them at PlayOn, it's like
tiny tanks. Cute little tiny tanks. Yeah.
Tiny tanks.
I know. I had no interest in Imperialis until actually seeing how adorable they are.
They are.
They're so cute.
Look at the little Nurgle Marine.
Right.
He's got a little chainsword.
Look at the little beak.
That's the best, isn't it? Tiny little tank. Yeah.
And you have to have sound effects when you play with them too.
Well, even with regular 40K, you gotta do sound effects. I mean, that's part of the fun.
Which you're the king of.
We're grown adults playing with space Barbies. If you're taking it serious, you're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. You got to have fun. I mean, circling all the way back to the question, how do I approach? Have fun. I want my opponent to have the most possible fun that they can have. My fun is important too, but if my opponent is having the best game that they've ever had, then I'm going to have the best game I've ever had, and we are going to have an amazing game. I'm not so arrogant to think that I know the best way to play Warhammer.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are, and I think they're missing an opportunity. It's just like anything else in life. I'm better with the people around me than I am by myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a fact of life that you're better because of the people you know and that you invite to be with you, and they'll come up with stuff that you haven't thought of, and that's part of what we do at PlayOn. It's one of our guiding tenets is that we are better together.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're all driving towards the same goal on the same page, we can come up with some pretty amazing stuff. And it shows in the numbers. It shows in the way people watch. It shows in what happens. And the views are a consequence of us doing the best that we can, all working towards the same goal.
Mm-hmm. It even shows in person as well. You guys are such a collective family, and you guys have each other's backs, and it's really beautiful to see.
Thank you.
It was so infectious in the air. It was wonderful.
We really try to make sure that, especially when we have guests, that it's about them. It's not about us, right? We're so blessed and honored to have people want to come see us. We started this as just a bunch of guys who wanted to play some cool games and show this cool idea that we had, and it evolved into this company. I mean, we're a company now. That boggles my mind. We have employees. We pay taxes. What the heck?
You have contracts.
We have contracts, right? It's humbling because we're just showing the way we like to play the game.
And you're also spreading that with people who aren't even aware of the game. Like I know like Owen and I think Benjamin as well. I noticed that it was Owen's anniversary, and like he was so like emotional that like this is like the best job he's ever had, and you can see it, you can feel it, and he had no idea what Warhammer was beforehand, really, and then now he's into it, and he's just you can see it, yeah.
It's an infectious level of excitement.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite parts about doing what we do at PlayOn is every once in a while I'll get messages from people I know, people I don't know, and I had one from a friend of mine, Danny McDowell, who is part of the Grim After Dark podcast. He just launched an Old World podcast
Right,
with
yes.
Peter and Val and a bunch of other folk, and he said he was at a tournament and he must have heard half a dozen times that dice tell stories.
Aww.
And he said, you guys are putting some really good energy into the world, and it made me feel so good because it's our goal is to inspire people to play. And I think it was originally Tack who came up with that concept, that put a name to dice tell stories. And it's true. They really do. And we let the dice tell the stories. We do our very level best not to interfere with players at the table. We do our very level best not to interfere with results. Sometimes we have to say, do you really want to make that charge? You really want to do that? Is that really the right play?
And they do it anyways?
You know what? It's ultimately, at times we'll look at it, okay, what has to happen here in the game to end the game? Like, where are we sitting? And we'll talk about with player options. Well, you saw it with Tanya. Okay, where are we at? And what does this look like? And what is this going to end up as? What's the best result if we go here or we go here? That's not influencing the game. That's just, as a player, what are my options? And that's a key part of making sure that you get the most out of the time you have in the studio. But as far as making choices and decisions, it's all on the players. We let the dice tell the stories, and sometimes the story they tell is, I should have stayed home. I've had it happen. I don't know why I'm here. This isn't. I had that happen at a tournament this week, and I'm like, well, that's neat. I laughed so hard in my 5th game that I thought I was going to break something. It was really one of those moments of, that's cool. Have you ever had those moments in game where you've just looked at your opponent and gone, huh, neat. So I'm fighting Necrons and triple Wraiths with Technomancers and 5-up Feel No Pains and 4-up Invulns, and it's like, okay, all right, I managed to snipe out one character, so that gets rid of the Feel No Pain. I clear the Wraiths off my home objective, great. I've killed one of the Satan shards, great. The Incarn charges into 3 Wraiths. I didn't even kill one. So my opponent made 3 of 4 or 3 of 5 5-ups. So keep in mind, I'm hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, so the reroll to hit and a wound, right? He made 3 of 5 4-up invuln saves, so he has 2 to go. I roll 2 damage, which he proceeds to roll 2 5-up Feel No Pains, and I roll 7 damage. He rolls 5 5-up Feel No Pains.
Oh.
And I looked at him, and at this point, his dice had been off the chain, and we were laughing. And John and I look at Dan, Dan Miner, who was helping run the event. He's looking at me, I'm looking at him, and we're both laughing hysterically, like that eye popping. What is going on?
Yeah, because
dice tell stories.
Yep. And what are you gonna do? Like, get mad at these dice? Like,
there's nothing you can do. Like, no, it's just all right. There's the narrow end of the bell curve on that one. That's what that was. Okay. All right.
Especially when like your opponent is also shocked by it as well. That's gold.
John was doing his level best not to be surprised and not to laugh.
Yeah.
But you could see it. He's like, holy shit, how is this happening? I mean, it won in the game. Absolutely won in the game.
Yeah.
No. Without a doubt. But yeah, I knew as soon as that happened, like turn 2 or turn 3, I'm like, oh, this game's over. I can't have that happen. Like with an Eldar army, they're super elite, and if you don't do what you need to do, you need to punch down. With Eldar, they don't punch up. Great. They punch down really well, and if you can punch down hard enough on your opponent with an Eldar list, you're going to win the game. It's about target priority, it's about positioning, and I couldn't kick him out of his power matrix. I couldn't stop anything. It was brutal. Nice tell stories.
Was he apologizing?
Oh, he laughed. He's like, yeah. I mean, the apologize is always the hard one, because you never want to apologize to an opponent because they might take it wrong. It's never meant as that, but sometimes it can come off like that. But no, he just kind of laughed. He's like, yep, that's what it is. I'm like, yep, that's what it is. What do? I laugh. Okay. Rack him up again. Let's go. Like, it's just, life's too short, and the game is too short to hold grudges, to get upset, to get angry. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all make decisions that might cost us the game, but sometimes you can fight your opponent. My good friend Sean Hobbs, who I haven't talked to in quite some time. So if you're out there, Sean, hello.
Hi.
He used to say, you can fight your opponent, but you can't fight the dice.
Oh, I love that.
He's right. You never blame dice, but they can definitely contribute.
If anything, just pick up a new pair of dice.
I've bought opponents new dice.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a brick of 32 in the bottom of the ocean somewhere, because they were that
the
bad.
Pacific Ocean?
Yes. Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, there's only one way I'm buying you these. You have to throw the other ones in the ocean. And he said, okay. I'm not entirely sure if he didn't go back and get them, but he winged them out there pretty far. It's pretty good.
I'm just imagining a child like finding this
brick of dice, like Jumanji opens them up. Oh, look, dice. Oh, 6 ones.
Yeah, they're so cursed.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I have rolled 7 ones in a row.
That's impressive.
Yeah, like it was like I rolled 2 dice, ones. Another pair, ones. A single, one. And it's all caught on camera. Like, that's the best too when it's caught on camera, because you could be like, see, and then people are like, that's like statistically like impossible. I'll be like, oh, I did it.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts to hear.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we all have these stories about horrendous dice rolls. I remember. Oh, hey, guess what just arrived? Oh,
dice.
Look at that.
Oh, coffee.
That is my wonderful wife. Say hello, wonderful wife.
Hello, wonderful wife, McDowell.
Hello. She's waving. She's over there. You can't see her because she can poke her head in. Here, come poke your head in. We're recording a podcast, so you can poke your head in. And this will probably all get edited out anyway. Come farther over. There she is.
Hi.
There's Kaylee. There's Laura.
Hi.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay, go away.
I say we keep it.
Oh yeah, that's not gonna get edited out. That's gold.
Nice. That's fantastic. I remember playing second round LVO against Colin Sherman from Best in Tabletop Network, and Colin and I had played before. Had played like 2 weeks before at a top table at Kippers, and I threw my Archon into his Guardian squad. Now, Rid of the Living Muse, Labyrinthine Cunning, all that jazz. I'm hitting on 2s, winning on 2s, re-rolling 1s both times. Colin had to make 1 save.
What?
It might have been 2. Yeah. 5 attacks. Was it 5 or 7 attacks? On no. Oh yeah, of course he made it. Re-rolling 1s.
That is
statistically impossible.
Into 1.
Yeah.
The best part about it was I looked at the dice. I looked up at Colin, and he goes, "Well, that happened." I'm like, "Huh?"
Yep.
Dice tell stories.
Can't do it again though.
Couldn't do that on purpose, right?
No.
I mean, that'd be great. Go to the craps table and just keep rolling craps, betting on it.
Do you believe in lucky dice?
Yes and no.
Oh.
I believe that math rocks can get streaky. I think that there are dice that are unbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are players that take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
That said, shameless plug for Baron of Dice. Baron of Dice, we use their dice as our PlayOn dice, and we have a bunch of different faction dice. And I've only ever seen one set of dice from the Baron roll consistently bad. That was the player, not the dice.
Mm.
and he was having a rough tournament. But that can happen. I have never rolled more consistently inconsistent, if that makes sense, in a good way, dice than their dice. Casino dice are the only way that you can be perfectly accurate. Who has the money to have 40 casino dice? They're not cheap. But they're resin dice. There's no bubbles, so there's no floating them to get the best possible whatever. Because I've seen players that have 7 sets of dice, 6 from one, 3 from another. It's like, why do you have all of those? She's a wonder, because they've balanced them and they're trying to find an edge, and it's silly. Our PlayOn dice and the Baron of Dice are honestly some of the best dice I've used. I like the bigger ones. I'm not a small dice guy. I'm old and I need to see things. And I think from my opponent's perspective as well, the larger the dice you have, the easier it is for them to see from across the table.
Yes, and they have to be readable. Like, you have to be able to read them. Like, there's obviously some Warhammer dice that are just awful. Like Necron dice. The
Nurgle dice were atrocious.
Which ones? The squishy ones?
The bubbly ones, yeah.
And then there's like squig dice as well.
Yeah, there were some really
the Chaos Knight ones are awful too. They're like red with like gold lettering.
So hard to see.
Yeah.
It's super important to have readable dice from across the table. Like, yes, you can see it, but your opponent should also be able to see it as well.
And I always struggle with the small, like the Necron dice, like the blue-greens. It's always hard to see what's a 3, what's a 5. Or what's a 4, what's a 5, right? And that can matter. So it's part of that being a good opponent is also making sure that your opponent can see what you're doing.
Yes.
Because there's nothing worse than leaving a game and feeling like that didn't sit well, that didn't go right. There's an opportunity there that it could be a bad thing. Yeah. And you got to eliminate that as a player. Because you should win on your own merits and a little bit of luck. It shouldn't be a question of, why did that player generate their secondaries for that round with their phone in front of them instead of on the table? Boy, they sure got you don't want to even leave that as a doubt. Or interspersed units is another one, right? You've got units that are interwoven. Make sure your bases are clear. I'm targeting the red base squad or the red shoulder pad squad, right? So make sure that you can clearly see those things. Or if you've got 2 units close together, turn them away from each other so that you can't possibly mix them up, right?
Yeah.
It's just things like that make you a better player, make you a better opponent.
I used to make tokens of like the exalted abilities for the great unclean ones, or just what my squads could do. And it was it's not so much for myself to remember, but also for my opponent. So it eliminates the gotchas, like for the opponent to. There's a lot to remember in a game, so having little cheat sheets or tokens helps each other out.
It really does. I mean, it doesn't feel good to win on a gotcha moment. Some people rely on it to win that way, and we all know players like that. That's not cool. That's not being a better player. That's just being sneaky.
Yeah.
Being a git. Like this, it's a sneaky git. It's just not okay. Be above board. Tell your opponent. You just keep in mind this unit can overwatch on 5s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to tell them a million times. I mean, you can, especially if you're playing a top tier tournament. You know, you've explained to your opponent what your army does. If they ask you a direct question, answer it. Don't be sneaky about it. I've heard stories of people like, well, what's that unit like in combat? I don't have to tell you that. Yeah, you do. I asked you. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just being a jerk. What's that line the jerks are called? They're running out of you. Do you remember that, Seinfeld? Am I that old?
No.
You might be a little older than us.
Ripes, you're killing me, Smalls. Please tell me you get that one. Sandlot?
Oh!
You're killing me, Smalls.
Is that Forever?
One of the greatest baseball movies.
Laura's just like,
I was like, we got a topic here to be on, folks. Like, can we stick to it? Like, poor Laura, we're just destroying everything.
She's the youngin'.
Right? I'm just too young. I'm like, Sandlot. What are you talking about here?
Okay,
You're missing.
watch it. You'll thank me.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
It's
Actually,
super
we've been going back and watching a bunch of older movies. I didn't watch a lot of movies as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been what was it? We just watched like The Green Mile I'd never seen, and like which is an
Tired
excellent
Boss.
movie.
Tired Boss.
Yeah, like so I've been going back and trying to catch up on some old classics, and we just watched Apollo 13. Like,
Wow.
Great movie.
So you're doing
actually,
all
a
the
lot
Tom
of
Hanks.
apparently. So like, I don't know if there's a theme there.
It's not a bad
So,
place
yeah.
to be. I mean, he's made some amazing movies.
Right?
You seen Forrest Gump?
Castaway. What was that?
Forrest Gump?
Forrest
I've
Gump.
never seen it like start to finish.
Philadelphia. Great movie. Oh man, probably one of his best movies, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't always get a lot of references because I didn't absorb enough when I was younger, and now I'm trying to catch up.
Joe
But I
versus
was going to say,
Volcano
I
is
guess
another good one. Wow, that's a deep cut.
I guess getting back to the tangent you guys were on, yeah, 100% the gotchas, and like there's no need for it. I especially had to deal with it in 9th edition playing like Emperor's Children because it was a fight first army, and nobody knew how to deal with it. So it was like 17 times a game I would have to explain the rules, and like 100% it's worth it to do that every time because there's nothing worse than winning because someone didn't understand how your army worked.
Yeah.
Like that's not a good competition. That's not being a good opponent, and that it just makes sure like it makes the win meaningless.
You're right. It kind of takes any value out of the win. Like, what did you prove there? I've known guys who've played pickup games and heard from players playing pickup games where players have not been forthright with what their army's capable of doing. Why are you bothering?
Yeah.
What I mean, if you really need to feel that superior about something, go out and kick a puppy, because that's effectively what you're doing.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's
it's
literally
yeah.
it's the same feel. You're a big, strong and you're overpowering somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. It's the same energy, and it's not okay. You wouldn't kick a puppy. Why would you do that on the tabletop?
Exactly. Especially this game. It's so big. It's so vast. Like if you're at that level of knowledge with your army, you also know that it's not an easy game to get into as well. So
Exactly. I love Beer Hammer. That's my favorite way to play the game. I love competition because there is a known social contract that already exists. You walk in, I'm going to smash you, and you're going to smash me. And after 2.5, 3 hours, we're going to walk away from the table. We're going to shake hands, and that's it. We leave it all on the table.
Yeah.
We're done. Beer Hammer, on the other hand, we're going to play for 4 or 4.5 hours. We're going to get silly by turn 3 if we make it that far. We're going to laugh our asses off. We're going to do stupid things, and we're going to have fun, right? And oftentimes that's enough just to... And if you can combine the two of those, oh man, magic, pure magic.
with a Beer Hammer game, do you make like a 2,000 point army?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we'll play. I want to try, like my buddy Mike, he's got this all Phoenix Lord list. It's not competitive, but it is so much fun because it's every single Phoenix Lord that he bought when he was a kid, bought the metal box set that had every metal Phoenix Lord. So I think he painted them when he was like 14. So they don't look great by modern standards. He's not a great painter by any stretch of the imagination. He's a tabletop ready painter. But even by his standards, they're a little questionable. There's a lot of thick paint on there. They're great.
Dipped.
But they're so nostalgic. Like, you look at it and you go, yeah, that brings me back to playing on the floor and using... Do you guys know what VHS tapes are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. So I'm just making sure, because there's a lot of old jokes going, so I'm making sure. Where we would make bunkers and buildings out of VHS tapes, paint cans,
Oh.
floor hammer, right? That
Yeah.
brings us back to those days. And that's the magic. Like, I mean, I'm approaching half a century, and I play with toy soldiers, and I'm proud of it.
For a
You know,
living,
40 years
too.
ago, 35 years ago, if I said that, people would make fun of me. 25 years ago, people would make fun of me. Look at me now, mother
15
truckers.
maybe.
Right? Look at me now. How you like me? I got a YouTube channel. I'm on
Yeah.
a podcast.
People know my
Woo!
name.
People know me. Do you know who I
I'm
am?
the
I'm kidding.
voice.
I'm the voice.
Actually, that just brings up a good point, though. How does having, PlayOn kind of working for Warhammer, how has that changed Warhammer for you?
It's interesting. It's changed some of the way I paint. Um, damn you, Tack. I kid. Tack's always his favorite word is fidelity, and we make fun of him a little bit because he's always throwing that idea, that name around. But what it is to provide the contrast on camera. I paint in a more grimdark, classic '80s Frazetta, Blanche. That's my inspiration, and it's a real challenge for me to make stuff brighter because I just don't see stuff that way. That's not where my jam is. So it's always fun to hear him talk about the higher fidelity, and I've pushed myself to create brighter colors that are easier to see on camera. Like my Drukari I've won painting awards, I've won favorite army awards, but you look at them on camera and they feel muddy because they are so dark. But if you look at them up close, I mean, there's grisly bits and intestines and twisted pieces of barbed wire and all sorts of cool, like there's a real body horror aesthetic to them that I really, really love. And it just doesn't translate great on camera. So that's definitely changed. How I approach the hobbying aspect, the build aspect, the paint aspect. And it's made me more conscious of what kind of person I'm viewed as in the community on the tabletop as well. It's actually allowed me to let go some of those more competitive holdovers from being a competitive athlete, football player, baseball player, wrestler, you name it. It's let me kind of shelve that a little bit. It's still there. There's a reason I'm playing Eldar right now. Because, well,
oh, why?
Thank you for saying it.
Because it takes me 2 hours to play instead of 3.
Oh.
The armies aren't as spiky.
Yeah.
Even though I made these wicked Kinnerai conversions that have giant tails, and I'm like, what was I thinking? These are just going to fall apart and break anyway. But it plays faster primarily, so that I can get the games done on time because it's always a challenge in a tournament.
Yes.
But fundamentally, it's allowed me to kind of look at the game a little bit differently, look at it from my opponent's perspective even more, and take into account that I have. And I speak for and I play for the channel, even though I'm not wearing a PlayOn shirt or a PlayOn team. People know where I'm from, so I have a responsibility to maintain that. I mean, I'm always a fun guy to play against anyway. I think I've been told that a lot. I always enjoy myself at the table. I always laugh, but it takes away that need to be. I don't know if it's a need to win or just I look at the game a little more calmly, I guess. It's weird. It's hard to put completely into words, but it makes me even more relaxed at the game table.
Because you're there for the experience.
Like
regardless, someone's gonna win, someone's gonna lose, and that's it.
It's kind of it. I mean, and I've gone into games where I've looked at it and gone, okay, well, we're both at this point in the tournament. Does it really matter if I win? I know I can win this game.
Yeah.
I know if I do this and this and this, I win. But what makes this a more fun game? What makes this more interesting? What if I do this and it's still not a bad play? It's not the play, but this is going to allow my opponent to play more. I had that happen at the Storm of Silence or the Harvester of Sorrow, which is a tournament in Spokane, one of the best tournaments in the Northwest. The Storm and the Harvester are just fantastic. And I was playing a pretty top tier Eldar list, and it was a differential scoring system, and I managed 3 draws and 2 wins. And both of those wins were primarily because my opponents ran at me. And I played to the draw on purpose because I didn't want to win. I wanted to prove that you can bring a smash mouth top tier army that still has fun and fluff and can still play and be enjoyable to play against. I had one opponent whose dice abandoned him completely. Like,
just walked out.
Oh, it was atrocious. Blood Angels, Iron Storm Detachment, and he did not kill a Ravager until the second turn. And he had like triple Ballistas, Brutalis, Whirlwinds, the whole shebang. Did not kill a Ravager. That's a 4-up armor, 6-up invuln, T9 11 wounds. With all the las cannons and crap in the world. Couldn't kill one until the second turn.
Oof.
Yeah. Oath of Moment, too. That's how bad his dice were.
Like old oath or new oath?
New oath. Current oath. But even so, with the Iron Storm?
Yeah.
And then my last round opponent had the new hotness Space Wolf wolf jail, or what do they call it, with the triple Thunderwolf cavalry, and they can outflank and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And he made the mistake of running at my gun line.
Oh.
There's not a lot I can do at that point if you're just going to run at me screaming and not make your charges. How do I actually do anything here? Sorry? But even so, it's still fun to play those games because there's two hardcore lists that are smacking into each other, and they're still close games.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one game was 16-4, which is if you're not familiar with the 10-point, 20-point system, a draw is within 5 points of a game score, and that's 10-10, and then you up and down based on that. So the most you can score is 20. It's like a WTC style scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So 16-4 still isn't a rout, which it could have been. But how fun is that for my opponent?
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So it's made me more conscious of even being a better opponent to play against.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it's important to note that for those of you that aren't aware, like JT is a frighteningly good player from some of the stories that I've heard. Like, you know,
Thank
this
you.
isn't like a
The
like, oh, you know,
reputation.
I decided to like play it a little more, but like, no. From my understanding is that there's a, you know, when you pull out all the stops, it is you are a tough nut to crack, we'll say.
Not only that,
Thank
you're a calculator. Like, you were at the table
yeah.
while we were playing at PlayOn. You're like, numbers.
Yeah, math by thirds, math by sixteenths. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've kind of got that down. That's years of being a poker player, calculating pot odds at the table.
Oh.
It's just switching gears and being because as much as we don't want to say it, this game's about math.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is, and what people often mix up is the difference between the statistics and the probabilities. They're two completely different things.
What's the difference?
Well, statistically speaking, you can calculate what the odds of rolling a specific number are, but the probability changes based on a lot of other factors. So it's kind of like the difference between tactics and strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Strategy is your overall plan. Tactics are the individual things you have to do to execute that plan. Statistics and probability kind of do the same thing.
Right.
So statistically, this should work, but the probability is.
Right.
Statistical math, I can't even remember half the stuff anymore. I remember just enough to make my brain cry. But there are some statistical mathematicians out there who could explain it way better than I could.
Mm-hmm.
But it's some pretty funky math. Math is a religion. It really genuinely is. Math explains everything in the universe.
100%. Yes. Yeah.
And we use it to play with toy soldiers. It's the best.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you use math for?
Go to spades.
Yeah, really? Go to
Right?
space.
Like,
Lay flooring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tile a bathroom wall.
I don't know. I've seen how some of these new houses are built now. I question if anyone's
Oh.
using math in that.
Yep.
What a
My
lack
house-
of math.
My house was built in 1970, I think. Yeah, I don't think math was invented. Oh, the things I found. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so funny.
Well, I'm in a 1867 house. Beautiful. Like, yeah, there's definitely, because we're like in an old heritage province.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And like the architecture is just like on point and it's beautiful. But yeah, around the 70s is kind of got questionable.
The influx of the marijuana.
Oh.
I live in Mission. It's a lot of it going around here, and I'm pretty sure they were stoned off their tree when they built this house. Like, it's just, there are choices that I'm like, that's neat. I don't think that was ever up to code. That's cool. Yeah. It's not as bad as some. I had a buddy of mine who had a main power line was actually grounded to the water pipe.
What?
Oh yeah, he's like, why is this? And then pulled some stuff apart, and yeah, they had grounded it to the water line.
Was it metal piping? The copper?
Yeah. It was metal. And he's like, oh, that's not good. We're gonna fix
No.
that. we gotta. That's not good to be touching that at all. Like, can you imagine? You go to turn the water on and good lord. I hope your house never gets hit by lightning. Yeah, yipes. Yeah.
You talked
Fun
about
stuff.
that tournament in Spokane. That it's
Mhm.
a great tournament. What makes a great tournament?
Oh, it's a great question. So, the Storm and the Harvester, Bob Kelly at the Gamers Haven in Spokane has run these tournaments for quite a while. And he has a more competitive tournament in the Storm, and he's got a more narrative driven tournament in the Harvester. I think he's pushing more towards that narrative, less competitive aspect of it, because that's kind of where Warhammer is moving a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of super competitive tournaments that exist. Excuse me, but with the advent of 10-point must for paint and the whole hobby aspect that a lot of players who played competitive for a long time and have seen what happens when you don't have soft scores, played with them, played without them. Soft scores are like sportsmanship and painting, and how it drives a certain mentality of page 5 rules, if that makes sense to anybody that play like you got a pair mentality, which is just so negative, and it has such a negative connotation and be taken so wrong so quickly that you're not thinking about your opponent and their enjoyment of the game and if they're having fun or not. So the Warhammer's really kind of come around to that, trying to encompass everything, and his tournaments have always done that. And what makes them good is his dedication to making them good. It takes a tournament organizer and a crew and everybody who works with him and for him that are there to make the event as special as they possibly can. It's not about swag, though it can be. It's not about free stuff, though it can be. It's about the attitude that the players come to the tournament with. And it's some of those players are curated. There are players who, for a lot of tournaments, not necessarily his, but other tournaments where they're just not allowed to come because their attitude is negative and they've had negative experiences. And the tournament organizers have said, look, your brand of play is not appreciated and we'll be refunding your money. I've done that.
Wow.
And I've done it because as a tournament organizer, I mean, Bob, I know feels this way. I know Dan feels this way. These are sort of the guys who do a lot. The guys at Aegis, JT and Noah and Lee at Bellingham, a lot of players, they all feel this. Jason in Olympia. I think he's in Olympia. No, he's in the Coast. Whatever. Can't remember. I haven't got to one of his tournaments yet. Doesn't matter. No, Jason, great guy.
Yeah.
All these names that nobody knows about. But if they watch this, they're going to go, hey, that's me. They all
a
feel
little
the same
special.
way. Right. But there are players that don't necessarily embody what it is to be a tournament player and what it is to make that event enjoyable. And if you're not there for that, then a lot of these tournaments will say no thanks. And it's their right. I mean, you don't have a right to play in every event. And if you're going to be a jerk, why would anybody want to play with you? And sometimes players don't get that and they need to be forcibly reminded of it. And it's unfortunate, but it's a truth. You get so lost in what you want to do and how you want to play and your unit that does this thing, you forget about the fact that there's another human being across the table from you who you are smashing into the ground and laughing about the entire time and calling them on every rule, and you are not making this a pleasurable experience. It's one thing to win, and it's one thing to win with grace. It's hard to do. It takes effort, and even sometimes you can be as gracious as possible and it won't get taken that way. I've had that happen. I'm trying to be helpful to an opponent, and trying to say, hey, look, there's this option or this option, and they just get mad at you. And they're not mad at me. They're mad at the fact that they're not winning the game.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't make that delineation.
That's so interesting because a lot of people talk about like losing with grace, but there should also be the conversation of winning with grace as well.
It's hard to do because you feel bad when somebody is having a really bad game.
Yeah.
And I've had players get mad at me for say, you know what, I'm really sorry that happened that way. That wasn't fair. And they think that I'm pitying. Not what I'm doing. I'm empathetic. I really know how this feels, and that sucks. And it's unfortunate that you came all this way and this has happened. But a lot of people won't hear it that way because what you say and what somebody hears, you don't have control over that. Right? So to make a good tournament, you have to have a good player base. You have to have good terrain. You have to have a dedicated tournament organizer who really believes in the event and who wants it to be successful. And the best tournaments have those things. They have dedicated judging crews. They spend the time and the effort. And that's just it. Your local Rogue Trader style tournament, your 8-player, 12-player tournaments aren't necessarily going to have that. because it's somebody who's stepping up and just trying to do something cool for the community and help out. And then that's the ones where somebody really craps on somebody and takes all the joy out of it for them, and then they don't want to do it anymore or complain. Well, if you think it's so easy, go run your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just try to get 8 tables of terrain together.
Yeah.
Even 4 tables of terrain together.
Mm-hmm.
That's not easy. I mean, the advent of MDF terrain and 3D printers and stuff, it becomes easier, but it's still not that easy to do. And quality terrain that's painted well enough that it looks cool on the table, not just pieces of cardboard slapped together or pieces of foam.
Mm-hmm.
That might be fine enough to play on for a competitive hardcore tournament, not for your average tournament. Thematic tables,
Mm-hmm.
cool missions, fun twists, random prizes, weird achievements. I really love the heresy version of the game right now. The concept of achievements. I can choose how I want to win the game, and I have to do these specific things, and that'll get me points, and that's kind of fun. I got to kill characters, or I got to blow up vehicles, or it's the same concept as Bring It Down or Assassination,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just a little bit different, and it's kind of fun that way. So that's, I think, what it takes to be a good tournament: a dedicated TO and players and players that want to have the event be successful. That's what makes a good event.
Do you play in
I'm
narrative?
just like imagining how nice that would feel right now. I'm like excited to I want to see what one of these events feels like. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like,
Yay! You
wanna
gotta
go?
come out. Hey,
Absolutely.
Wet Coast is Easter.
Yeah.
Just a
the,
weekend.
the wet, just
Okay.
the fact that it's called Wet Coast, it's just so, it's too much.
Also, I was gonna go to a wet coast, and then COVID happened, so that's kind of put like a.
It's happening this year. We're doing it again
It's the first
I'm
year
actually-
since.
since COVID. Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
And I'm playing this year.
Nice.
Ooh.
I have no idea what I'm bringing yet because I don't know what data slates are going to drop and how points are going to change
Right,
and then what
yeah.
I'm going to paint. But Wet Coast is coming the Easter weekend. We're doing it Good Friday and the Saturday. So that way people, if they spend Sunday with their families, can go spend Sunday with their families.
Nice.
Normally it'd be Saturday, Sunday, but because a lot of people have Good Friday off already, I think the original goal was to try to find some way to do an event on the Sunday as well, but the sheer cost of running events in Vancouver makes that somewhat unable to happen, unfortunately.
Is this at the Sheraton in Richmond?
Yes, yeah, the airport, Sheridan Airport in Richmond, which is a decent little hotel. They got a big space. I think it includes food this year as well. There's a food
Oh.
option, and I think I want to say $40 for the food option for both days, and it's like a buffet food style, which is fantastic. They wheel it out after the first game, and you can go eat, which makes it
Mhm.
really easy.
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping. I think we could potentially hit 200 players.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's really been a resurgence in the Lower Mainland in competitive play and tournament play since sort of COVID. A big part of that was Jim Vezel, who hasn't really played much anymore, and Dan Miner and a bunch of us are running sort of a provincial 40K league. The tournament that happened this past weekend was the finals for that league. So the top 1-2 from every division, and then it was open to whoever could fill in would go play. But it was it's really kind of driven the scene a little bit more locally. Every regional rep can do whatever they want to do. Primarily, it's a way to get out and play new games with new people and break that ice, because a lot of stores don't have a ton of space to play in anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you can play in stores, you can play in your homes, and it's kind of cool to play against people you wouldn't normally play against.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of in your geographical region as well. Mine, unfortunately, is the largest geographical region. So if you're familiar with BC, it's from Langley to Chilliwack.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we've actually had it enough where we've had enough players to split it into 2 divisions. So we have an East Valley, West Valley.
Okay.
But it's really kind of fun because we get to, like I say, play against people you don't normally play against. You get to play a tournament style where it's top tier versus bottom tier, but you can play whatever you want, have some fun. You're just locked to a faction. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Play that faction for the 6 leagues, and I think the minimal cost, like $10 or $15, is all we do, and that goes to prizing and cover any rental space that we need for the finals, etc. It's a great way to drive kind of more games.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of a clapback against COVID because nobody was playing. everybody was hiding. And we even ran at the beginning of the first season. We even allowed some games on TTS
Mm-hmm.
because COVID is real and it's a thing.
Yes.
And no matter where you stand on it, it's a concern for a lot of people. So we made it as accessible as we possibly could,
Mm-hmm.
and it's made a big difference. So, but you guys should come. You totally should come.
But
I know Tanya's coming.
oh, but what about
Just saying.
our PlayOn trip at the end of the year?
Well, come again. Like, go twice. It'd be great.
just cross the continent, just
It's only
casually.
6,000 kilometers. It's one
Nothing.
way,
Walk it. Yeah, just walk it. Start hiking. You're good. You're good.
If
It's
Terry
easy.
Fox can do it, we can do it.
Actually, Terry Fox didn't do it.
Yeah, Steve Fonio did it. He
Yeah.
actually just passed away, which is sad. But a year and a half ago. Wow, that took a dark turn. Didn't it? We went Terry Fox to Steve Fonio. What the hell? Holy crow.
Grim Dark, right?
It's the chaos. That's what it is. This feels like just giggling with my friends, and I love it. So happy.
I mean, that's the goal. So you talked about organizing tournaments. If you were to give maybe a few pieces of advice to tournament organizers that are maybe listening, what can you do to maybe elevate and push closer to kind of that ideal of everyone's there to have a good time, everyone's there to, play competitively, but also maybe compassionately for their opponent?
It's honestly, for a lot of people, that's a big ask, because a lot of people can't get that. A lot of people have a hard time knowing what's fun for their opponent. So being the example, being the change that you want to see is part of it. Maintaining your cool as a player and as a TO, and dealing with people on a way that you would want them to deal with others is helpful, because a lot of people genuinely struggle with that social aspect of the game. So it's hard to just say you have to do this to somebody who has no concept of what that means. So you need to model the example behavior. The other big thing would be to ask for help. As a TO, trying to do this in the dark by yourself and grab tables and get terrain, it's overwhelming. Ask for help. Even ask for help from players who may be those problem players, the players that have issues with other people, the players who cause some of the ruckus. Ask them to help you. Ask them to assist you to get tables together, to promote it, to push it, and let them see what it actually takes to build that kind of community. Mm-hmm. The biggest one, though, is definitely ask for help. It's not easy to do it, to be a TO, and it's expensive to put stuff together. And don't be afraid to tell your players, hey, we're going to do an 18-player tournament at this place. The cost is this, and we need to make sure that we cover that cost. And it's really easy to go over that cost. But be upfront. Tell them it's going to cost you, it's a $30 tournament, and we're going to take $10 of every head that pays, and we're going to go to upgrade the terrain for the tables. But be upfront. Be transparent with your costs. Be transparent with your scoring. Be transparent with how everything works. Ask for help, and model the behavior that you want to see. And that's probably the best advice I can give to an aspiring tournament organizer.
Do you have a lot of people ask you for advice?
On occasion, yeah. I'm loath to give it, to be honest. I have fairly strong opinions about a lot of things, and I try to moderate that, because oftentimes it can come off. I have a pretty powerful voice, and I can be somewhat intimidating, so I'm mindful of how that comes across. That said, if somebody genuinely wants my advice on how to make something work better, from my point of view, I'm happy to help with that. Oftentimes people want advice just to confirm that they're right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or to confirm that you're wrong. But if somebody genuinely wants, hey man, I don't know how this is going to work. How do we make it work? There's something that we practiced a lot at PlayOn, and that I carried into my personal life. It's called radical candor. So the idea is to be honest as radically as you can, without shame, without judgment, without hurt, without anger, and just be honest, radically honest. Hey, that sweater or that shirt on you, JT, looks bad. It's not that I'm going to come out and tell somebody that, but if somebody says, what do you think of my shirt? I'll be honest, the decal's quite faded and it doesn't look good. That's radical candor.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do that because oftentimes you say, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's not fine. Right? I mean, it's a simplified version of it. And we go far deeper than that. It's not something as banal as a t-shirt. But if somebody's doing something in a way that they're struggling with and somebody asks, give them honest feedback.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that honest, it helps.
Yeah. Being a chef, we need that. We need to know, does this taste well? We don't want to know that it's like, oh, it's good. That's a death trap right there.
My least favorite phrase in the world is "it's fine."
With the
It's
fire
fine.
behind you, and it's fine.
Right? It's fine. Oh, it'll be fine. No, it won't. We can structure our plan and organize in a way that we can minimize any kind of risk or failure. Let's do that.
Yes.
Let's be honest about that and
Yes.
sort that.
Yeah.
And that's really where we use radical candor a lot at PlayOn is okay, how do we structure this so that we can minimize the default or minimize the failure?
Mm-hmm. So you can
Because
better
oftentimes we don't see it.
troubleshoot yourself when you're at the problems.
And that's a big part of it is, and taking that advice on board without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard to do. Because when somebody tells you that, and again, to use the silliest example, your shirt doesn't look good, you could take that personally.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can see it from their perspective and see why they're saying that. And understand that the hole in your armpit and the mustard stain and it's not a professional look, right? I mean, if you want to look that way, hey, more power to you.
Yeah.
But if you're asking, does this look professional, and you've got a giant grease stain on your belly button, I'll be prepared to hear that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of it is just communicating openly and honestly, and that's so hard for people to do
Mm-hmm.
because it's fear, right? I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be different. I don't want to be seen as an outsider. It's a mind killer, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just be open.
Well, we don't want to be embarrassed as well for being wrong.
I think being a dad to a teenager effectively makes you immune to embarrassment.
Because now you are the embarrasser. You embarrass.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is actually kind of cute.
I don't know what age I thought walking around my house in my underpants was okay, but I'm there now.
Oh, apparently my fiance Jarrett, his dad used that tactic to get him to move out.
Solid tactic.
Yeah, it was more like
Solid
them
tactic.
walking around naked, but yeah, that's
Oh no, I couldn't do that. That would be wrong.
that
Nobody
was
wants
like
to
a
see them.
desperation. Like, you got to get out.
Time to
You're in
go.
underwear right now, so just give us some time.
See, I personally don't believe in pants, so
Oh, like you don't believe in them, or
I don't believe in pants. I don't wear pants. Pants are a tool of the patriarchy.
oh, because you're shorts.
Pants are a tool of the patriarchy. It's the truth. It's the Scotsman in me. I can't help it.
Ah.
I'm looking at Laura's red hair. You know what I'm talking about.
Listen, that's a whole can of worms and a lot of stories that are.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I mean, you're talking to two people that are literally in New Scotland, so I feel like we're a little closer to the source, maybe. But
A little bit, yeah.
but yeah, I do want to talk about, because one of the things that I didn't really realize until going out to visit you guys is that you're kind of like the storyteller of PlayOn. And one of the big things like we've talked about a lot on the podcast is finding the narrative in a game of Warhammer, and it is a skill. So, is that something you want to talk about, and maybe
Sure,
how you
yeah.
built up those skills?
I appreciate the compliment. I love telling stories, and as you haven't noticed, I like to talk, as I've been blathering on for the last hour and 13 minutes. I think one of the key things that we can all do at PlayOn is we all tell stories. We tell them a little bit differently, and it's really kind of magical. It's taken myself, Nick, and Ben time to figure out what kind of pace and what kind of stories we tell. A lot of our stories are driven by our editors, Ben, Owen, Mubin, even Tycho, and Nick, and Tack for that matter. But Steve and I are the only ones who don't do any editing. It's not really where our strong suit is. But that story, finding a story inside a game, is difficult. Because sometimes you have a clear story. It's the lion versus Mortarion, or it's Gulliman versus Angron. Like there's stories that kind of write themselves, and we've had some amazing narrative games that are they look so cool because we've got this concept of. We did one which was this endless horde of Tyranids versus Ultramarines, and it was like an homage to StarCraft. We sort of had the Zerg, and that was Tack had this idea, I'd like to do this, and then Nick said, well, let's do this, and I said, well, I can build a board that does that, and then I've always wanted to build a trench board, and then, okay, well, what if we this, and then Tycho's like, well, we've got this, and then we just put this whole thing together, and it's an amazing battle report, and you watch it still, and it gets tons of views because it's cool. It just looks neat. So that narrative is very easy to find. It's very easy to sort that because we started with it. But sometimes finding the narrative inside the game is difficult. And as a scriptwriter, my role is primarily to sit there to watch the game, to pick up the beats, the important dice rolls, the important charges, failed and successful, the big shooting phase, the big turnarounds, and then find a way to make a story. And if I can sum that up in the narrative intro in about 15 to 20 seconds, oftentimes it's the difference between how successful a battle report actually is. And we've noticed that it's the different intros affect how long somebody watches as much as the armies do. If we could figure out the magic of what exactly works on YouTube, we'd all be really happy. It's pretty tough to sort it.
But once you figure it out, YouTube will change it right then and there.
That's exactly it. The algorithm switches. It's the AI learning process. I, for one, believe in our AI overlords. Just stating that out loud so that if they hear me, then they know that I'm on their team.
Oh, your phone's already listening.
Right? My phone's already listening. So telling those stories, as much as we talk about dice telling stories, if we can find just those little narrative plot hooks, it makes a big difference. And I grew up watching wrestling. I grew up watching sports. I grew up playing wrestling or playing sports and wrestling and being involved in that world and understanding the psychology of a match and how to bring people in and how to get heat and how to put somebody over and how to do those things. So as much as I try to maintain a strict play-by-play commentary neutrality, much like I think one of my favorite announcers ever, I mean, Jim Ross was always wonderful. My brain just crapped out on me. Calgary Stampede Wrestling, they've named the broadcast booth after him, and I can't think of his name. I'm kicking myself. There's people out there screaming it at me right now. Fantastic announcer. Did the Calgary Flames games at Saddledome, and also did Stampede Wrestling. And he used to, in the meantime and in between time, was his sign off. And one of his favorite phrases was "malfunction at the junction." That alliteration tells a story, and I love using those kinds of phrases like slobberknocker and barn burner and knockdown drag out. And I swear one of these days we're gonna have it's Gulliman with a steel chair. By God, like it's gonna happen.
You're gonna have a little Jim Ross in you. Come on,
right?
Oh my God!
But that's the stories that just adds to it, and I think that helps our stories. Having that, and it makes it feel like a live event. It makes it feel like you're in the moment. It makes it feel like you're there.
It's not just a battle report between the two opponents. You are like the audience, and you're driving the audience to this emotion and feeling. Like you should be excited with this squig, and then you make your little squig noises.
It was just so much fun. And sometimes I'll throw stuff in just for Ben or for Nick or whoever's doing the audio, and that'll make it into the final cut, and I'll laugh because I was just literally making noises for them to hear me while I'm doing it. Because it's silly, but it's fun. And those, I think that's what makes a great story. And then some of the other guys who do the announcing do it in a completely different way. Tycho is very much more of a storyteller in the sense that he's telling you what's happening with the game. and being very descriptive with things that go on. Steve comes at it from a different angle as well. So we all have sort of our ways that we bring it forward and bring it to the public to listen. And people have their favorites, and that's fantastic. My goal is always to make it as neutral as I possibly can so that it doesn't look like we're playing any kind of favorites. And then to get excited when people have a reason to get excited, and to get sad when there's a reason to get sad. Just like great play-by-play commentators that I've grown up watching since I was like 4 years old. I mean, I could list them. There's so many of them. Just great voices. I mean, from Harry Carey. Hello, fans. Welcome to like Harry Carey. He's just wonderful. Like, he was great. Baseball commentators are some of the best. Because if you listen to when they're trying to fill dead space, it gets so funny.
Because you have to. If there's dead space, it's dead for a reason.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And I'll write so many things and so many lines, and we'll use half of them because they just don't fit, and stuff gets cut because it's not as important, because it's that goal to make it 40 minutes. It's hard. It took us a long time to figure out how to get that down there, but Ben is a bit of a machine at that now. The guy's a wizard, and he really does a fantastic job. In fact, I think the game that he did between yourself and Tanya was one of my favorite games we've ever had on the channel, because it hit every note. It was almost perfect. I hate to say perfect because I think we can always do better.
Oh, yeah.
But that was one of the best games we've ever had.
Oh, wow.
I remember talking to Kaylee about this afterwards, because, like, Kaylee got to go on and have the battle report, but I actually feel very privileged that I got to, like, watch you watch that game. Because I your reactions to what was going on, I could tell it was a good game, because you were, like, enthralled with it, and you were like, there was, like, times you and I are, like, theory crafting. It's like, what is it, like, what even can happen from here? And I was like, this is an engaging game. And that's honestly part of, like, when I talk about, like, finding the narrative, like, going back to the being a good opponent and winning with grace and losing with grace. Like, if you can find the story in your own game, it's fun no matter what the outcome is. And I think, like, these skills that you're teaching people through your battle reports are so transferable to your own games, and can help bridge that gap of, like, seeing when the thing that just is exciting, when somebody makes the 12-inch charge. Like, that's incredible. You should be excited about that, even if it's terrible for you. Like, let's enjoy it.
Oh, I cheer for my opponents while I'm playing, because it's fun. Somebody will say, I'm going to go for the 10-inch charge, and I'll be excited. Are you? Oh, yeah, let's do this. Come on, let's go. Here we go. Right? Or it's like, I got an extra command point for you to reroll. Let's go. Let's do this. Like, I'll get excited for them. And it just adds to the game, because it is fun when that happens. I walk into every game, and I always have, expecting to lose. I don't view that I deserve to win. I expect to lose. I have already lost the game. It's a very again, I used to read a lot, and Miyamoto Musashi used to talk about that samurai fatalism that exists, that I have lost this battle. How do I win? And that's the goal, is how do I win? And a lot of players will expect to win and look for opportunities to make that happen. I think that defeats the purpose. I think if you go into the battle knowing you've lost and accepting that you've lost, that's the key. Accept that you've lost this battle. Now find how to win the battle. And at those moments, you can get more excited, and you can bring more energy, and you can really get excited for your opponent, because they're trying to do the same thing. And if you can find those ways to win, then that's a victory. Knowing you're going to win and winning, where's the victory? There is none. Knowing you're going to lose, recognizing that it's this is an opportunity, and it takes all of the pressure off at that point. I know I've lost. How am I going to win? And then getting excited when you do.
Yeah.
Not to the detriment of your opponent, not at their, oh, wow, you suck, you can't roll fours. No. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I still have a chance. There's such a difference between those two phrases.
I had goosebumps from what you just said.
I know.
It's a truth, though. Like,
Yeah.
I literally don't think I can win any game. Do I know mathematically? Sure. Everything's possible, but I need to find a way to win.
Mm.
And if I can find that way to win, I don't even necessarily have a game plan.
Mhm.
Everybody has a game plan. I put this year, this year, this year, this year, go. I'm
Yeah.
like, nope. Let's see how this works.
Yeah. Well, there's only one way but to go up. And if you're starting at the top, there's only one way but going down. So it makes
That's
complete
it, right?
sense.
And then if you're losing when you expect to win, it can bring out the worst in some people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It really
Yes.
can. And we've seen that. Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen that at table. Somebody who expects to win, who doesn't rate you as a great player or as a great army,
Yeah.
and suddenly starts doing things that are questionable and even against their character normally. We've all seen people who think they deserve to win. I read an interesting article about cheating because we were dealing with some of that, and I've run into that a few times. And why does it happen, and where does it happen? Who does it?
Mm.
If I asked you, who do you think cheats the most in any game? Who are the people that cheat the most? What class of people? Would it be the people that win the most, the people that lose the most, or the guy who's trying to win more? The try hard, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think actually cheats the most?
Probably the person trying to win. No?
Nope.
Losers?
Statistically, the person who wins the most is the person who cheats the most.
Really?
Statistically, it's actually the players
Wow.
and the competitors who win the most who actually feel that cheating isn't cheating because they deserve to win.
Right. And I guess, like, is that there's like
Um,
with Warhammer, there's like almost a fine line with cheating. Like, is not knowing a rule, is that cheating? Or you kind of like you fast read and you're like, oh, I played that wrong completely.
And cheating is such a four-letter word.
Yeah.
It really
Mm.
is, because I have cheated by accident.
Yes. Yeah.
I've called myself on it. I've rewound games. I've given my opponent opportunity. We did this wrong. That's on me. Even though it's on them too to maintain a proper game state. I'll take the blame. It's
Mhm.
on me. How do you want to resolve this?
Mm-hmm.
How do we move forward from this?
Mm-hmm.
And give them the opportunity to do so. I had it happen in this past tournament. We were playing Scrambler Fields, which means you cannot show up on an objective. I killed a unit. I'm dropping stuff here as I'm fidgeting. I killed a unit on an objective and then teleported my Incarn to there. I can't do that.
Oh,
It's
right.
technically, and neither of us caught it. There was an Overwatch exchange. I piled in. I did some other stuff, and then realized it. You know, as we finished that turn, went forward. I'm like, we've made a mistake.
Mhm.
I couldn't have done this. So I gave my opponent the opportunity. I said, the character would still jump to here. This, we can either give you the command point back and this doesn't occur, or we can leave the game state as it is and leave the Incarn on the wounds that she has. Your decision, your choice. I left it to my opponent. I said, because I made that mistake. He says, no, I didn't catch it either. And the best part about that is the ownership on my opponent's part that he didn't catch it either.
Mhm.
He said, well, which way do you want to go? I said, honestly, there's advantages in it for me for both ways. I would rather you make that decision because I don't want to feel like I'm gaming it because we both screwed up.
Yeah.
So he said, let's leave it as it is. And I'm like, that's fine.
Mhm.
We'll do that. Right? So that part of it, that owning your mistakes and your decisions is a big part of being a good opponent too. But
Well, and I think when we talk about people cheating, because there is that gray area of like 40K is a hard game, it's a complicated game, and there's always that human error. There's that gray area of like honest mistakes, and not even necessarily honest mistakes, just like you just forgot one particular rule and that has an escalating effect.
misrepresented an AP because it used to be something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done that.
Or didn't read the FAQ because it just came out a couple days ago,
Right.
kind of thing.
See, that is cheating. That is technically cheating. But there's a difference between cheating and there's cheating with intent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? I cheated because I misrepresented my gun strength is actually 5 when I represented 4. I cheated to my detriment. Now, my opponent actually knew this. They cheated with intent. They knew I was wrong and let me roll at strength 4. They didn't know, so it's still on me, but both of us need to maintain a proper game state. So there is that part of it. But when you purposely misrepresent your army, purposely misrepresent movement, measure too far, count a hit as a miss, roll behind terrain, there's all of these things that are cheating with intent, and that's the difference. You can cheat and not mean to.
Yeah.
Accidentally grabbing the wrong bat that's corked in baseball that you were using in warm-up
Yeah.
to hit dingers for the fans, and oops. Question is, did you do that on purpose or did you accidentally cheat? Well, you're still going to get kicked out because you shouldn't have had that anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
Or the golf ball that's illegal, the driver that is too reactive, the extra nitrous that's too reactive. Oh, there we lost. See that the blips that's messing me up, man. The blips on the internet are just.
Ooh.
I'm all caffeinated.
Because you were talking about the AI or over
1867 Ghost House. That's what it is.
It's
I
haunted.
mean, my house was built in 1897, so we both got ghosts.
Yeah.
We do too, actually, and the house is only 50 years old.
There you go.
But yeah, misrepresenting on purpose, that's a different kind of cheating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a
I hate
hard
it.
one to call on. Like, I went to a tournament recently and had someone just blatantly, like, it couldn't have been anything other than cheating. And, like, I couldn't get him to stop. Like, it got to the point that it was like, if I wasn't carpooling with someone else, I would have just packed up and left.
Did
But
you
I
have a
was like,
TO?
well, kind of. It was at a small game store. It wasn't the regular guy, and he was very much like, I'm not super great at this. Anyways, and it was my first time at that game store, first time like at that tournament. And it was just like a 12 person, like it wasn't a big event. So it was kind of one of those just like, it wasn't until after the fact that I went back and like figured out everything. And it was just like, okay, I thought that it was a few rules, and it was actually like, it was egregious what was going on. And even in that, like, I had the certainty of like, you can't, like, there's no way that this army works this way. And it was still hard to like call them on it.
It's difficult.
And like,
yeah.
if it's even a smaller difference of like, I didn't actually see that roll and that was really important, or like I hate when people have like the tiny dice trays and they're rolling tiny dice into the corners of it. And you're just like, it just, again, it makes it kind of that like, why do you only throw them into the corners when it really matters? And you get those little.
So that's
like,
somebody who's trying to get any advantage, right? That doesn't sound like fun, and I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, because that kind of player doesn't understand what the game's about.
No,
They don't care about your fun. They don't care about the tournament. They just care about a number.
You're the puppy getting kicked.
You're the puppy, right? And it's hard to confront somebody about that, because first thing I would suggest in that situation, like if it were me on the other side of it, can you show me that rule, please? Can you show me your book, please? I'm not sure, and I understand that you understand it that way. That doesn't seem right to me. Can I please see your book? And if they say no, say, so why not? Right? And if there's a pushback at that point, then you've nailed them, that they know they're wrong. Call a TO over. Even if they're not new on the rules. Say, hey, we've had this situation happen twice now, and I'm concerned that this is occurring. I don't know if it's by accident or on purpose. So do you think you can sit and watch this, please? That's a TO's job. New players and players in new environments are always scared about calling a tournament organizer over or a rules judge over because they think it's a negative. I've had some of the best games, the most gentlemanly games, for lack of a better term, with players, and we both called judges over because we were both unclear on the rules. And the conversation literally went like this. I'm going to do this with this. I don't think that's how that works. Are you sure? I think that's how that works. Why don't we call a judge? Sure. Done. That's it. Yeah. There's no argumentation. Judge comes over. What's the issue? My opponent states his case. I think da-da-da-da-da. And I said, I think da-da-da-da-da. And the judge goes, it's da-da-da-da-da. And we both say thank you, and we move on. That's it. There's no judgment for calling a judge. Everybody thinks that it's a bad thing, but it's the players who rely on you not speaking up, not representing for yourself, and not advocating to not call the judge, to bully you into submission. And when you go back and look at the rules, you go, what a piece of crap. This person totally screwed me. Yeah. And then now how do you deal with that?
Because you're stuck in the wishful, like, oh, I should have said something, or I wish I would have said something.
Yeah.
It's so difficult when you're in an environment where you feel like you're outnumbered. A tournament organizer should make sure everybody is aware, call me over. I am not the fastest on the rules, but we will resolve it in a way that is amicable. Even if the TO says, look, I don't frickin' know, roll a dice and 4-up it. I hate that. I hate that as a rule, but if they do that, then both players are abiding by that result.
Yeah.
And you can tell the one who was cheating, because if it doesn't go their way, they're going to snap lose it.
And that's where you kindly tell them next time you are no longer invited.
As a TL, if you see that behavior, you can warn a player, look, that's not cool, and don't do that anymore. This is where the yellow card, red card system that the Frontline Gaming put into their ITC code of conduct. And it has worked primarily, for the most part, to rid the hobby of a lot of that stuff. Because if you get yellow carded or red carded, everybody knows about it. And it's a small community overall. Everybody knows why you got kicked out.
Yep.
Because you refused to apologize to a player that you blatantly cheated, and you would rather go home than apologize. Some people can't apologize. Some people can't get it. And I understand that. And in the moment, everybody has challenges. But in the cold light of dawn the next day, you have to be able to look at yourself and go, okay, was that valuable? Did I learn anything? And that self-reflection is hard for a lot of people. And I'm sorry you had to go through that, because that sounds like it sucks. I've been there. But again, as mentioned, I'm as tall as I am wide. And I can be rather forceful at a table. And I've learned that I will advocate for myself and say that's not how that works. But here's funny. Me, who does this for a living, whose job it is to get rules right, and I still do get them wrong, had opponents questioning me how stuff worked on the weekend. And I would say, no, it goes like this. Oh, we can ask so-and-so. I said, or you can ask the guy who does it for a living. And I said that like 4 times. And then I had people look at me. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, but go ahead and ask, please. And then they'd ask, confirm exactly what I said, and said, like I said, I do this for a living. Just to be a dink. Because it's like, come on, man. You're arguing a stupid basic rule that you should know. Like in my brain, I'm like, this is so incredibly basic, but complex game. Lots of rules. It's difficult to get sideways. But that little angry voice in my head's like, come on, man. Seriously? Yeah. You measure front to front, not front to back. Let's go. That's not. You can't bend your tape measure around a corner. Your base has to clear and then move. Oh, that's my biggest pet peeve in Warhammer right now, is the bent tape measure. Do you know what I'm talking about by the bent tape measure?
Yeah.
That's not right. That's not how you do this. Okay. Here it is. When moving large base models around building corners that you are not allowed to go through,
I'm listening.
Vehicles, monsters, etc.
Great and clean ones.
You measure from the back of the base to clear the obstacle that you're passing over. That distance is how far it takes your entire base to clear. Then you measure from the front to your target. That is how you measure to go around corners. You don't bend your tape measure and go like this. That's not how it works, because you can't run through the corner of the building. The cleanest, the best I've ever seen, I was Las Vegas Open years ago. This is the one where we had to play the last round at midnight or whatever the heck it was, because everything went sideways. Oh yeah, somebody accidentally deleted the round 2 scores. It was pretty rough. Yeah, that was a fun day. We were given the option to play the round in the morning or play it in the evening. But I played against a player who was playing nights. And he had extra bases. He had blank bases that he would measure that base. And I looked at that, and I looked at him. I'm like, don't take this the wrong way, but I love you. He laughed.
It's so smart.
It's like, okay, because it's super clear. And we talked about that earlier, about making sure that your intent is perfectly clear with your opponent. There's no fuzz on that one. Like, you know exactly. There's no, oh, I got an extra half inch out of it, or nope. I know exactly how much it is. And it's clear, right? I got like half of Laura's ear here. It's kind of funny.
Well, no, and one of the things like I struggle, and Kaylee and I have talked about this, because like my eyes are bad. So like I struggle sometimes with movement, just like seeing the measuring tape when you're like bent over. I'm also like, I'm a little fat, well, more than a little fat. I'm quite fat. So like by the time you're like leaning over, you know, a table and like you can't really see anything. So like I'll commonly be like, I think this is this, to get my opponent to confirm. And I feel like oftentimes people feel like that is like I'm trying to like mix and be like, oh, and like because I'm sitting there like I would rather under move than like over move. But I feel like that's a credit I'm aware of. Like, I know I have that shortcoming. And I feel like we should all be somewhat aware of our own shortcomings.
For sure. But ask your opponent to measure the distance. What's wrong with that? Hey, I make this as 8 inches. What do you make that charge?
Yeah.
right? So I'm 30, or for example, I'm 16 inches away. I move 12. That means it's a 4-inch charge. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So even if it gets bumped, that's playing by intent. I'm going to charge with this unit. I need to make this charge. I measure this distance here. I move this far towards you. That means it's this distance. And if your opponent agrees with that, and then you roll the dice number, and then they go, "Oh, you're out." No. We said this at the beginning, and we both agreed that this is the distance. That's playing by intent. It doesn't mean, "Oh, I intended to be on the objective." Well, then you should have been on the objective there. You're not, so go away.
Yeah.
But asking your opponent to measure, something that might actually help you are measuring sticks. They're just 1/4-inch strips of plastic or MDF. Plastic's better, the acrylic, because it doesn't bend. And then you have them in like from 2-inch all the way up to 12-inch movement, and you can lay them out, and you know exactly how far you're moving at that point.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Those are super helpful.
Yeah, because for me,
there's a lot of companies that make those.
For me, it's my height, because I'm so short. My perspective is so off, and then you have like the tape measure, and you're like, I can't quite see.
Try to get close to the table, like my chest is closer to the table before my eyes are.
Seeing like the tables at LVO gives me anxiety to think like trying to move things like across the board. Like I wouldn't even know how to do that.
I asked my opponent to move it.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I will establish that early. If I have something in a far corner, I'll say to my opponent, I would like to move that squad of scourges behind that building so that I can't be shot from this side, but still have line of sight there. I will get a 6-inch move afterwards, and my intent is to be here. Can you move that? And 99 times out of 100, yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
And we've declared that. And then they shoot, okay, now they move back towards that building to hide. Oh, okay, fine. And I've had it where opponents have said, "Oh, wait a minute, no." And they goes to move. "Oh, no, wait a minute, you move those guys back so I can't see them. So I'm not going to go that way." Totally cool. Because we declared that beforehand, because we're both playing the same game, right? We're maintaining a board state. So a lot of times people are afraid to ask somebody to move their models. I don't care. I don't want to walk around an entire length of table. I'm broken and old. Like, my knees don't work anymore. And likewise, if an opponent says, "I want to move to be here," okay, is this okay? And I'll clarify that they know where it is. Okay, you've got 9 to here, but this is in your way. And they'll be like, "Yeah, that's perfect. Done. We're good." It's a collaborative game that often gets lost in that competitive of you versus me. Yeah, and if you make it a collaborative experience, it's way more fun.
Yeah, people just separate themselves in competitive.
Collaboration in a competitive game. What a revolutionary concept that we all need.
Is it though?
No, I mean it shouldn't be. I just feel like
it shouldn't.
You're right. Having played enough people, it's revolutionary to some people, but it shouldn't be.
No, really shouldn't be. Because we're spending 3 hours together, we may as well enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah, let's like each other for at least 3 hours.
I think I mean Warhammer's afterwards, you can go punch it up in the parking lot. I don't care.
I'll never forget a fist fight at a tournament.
What was that?
Have you ever seen a fist fight?
No.
Okay, good.
Thank goodness. I've seen yelling matches, and I've just been embarrassed for both people because you're yelling about space dollies. I've seen people get angry and throw things, and I'm like, how old are you? It's space dollies. Yeah. I've been frustrated against my buddies when it's going sideways.
You could just say the word. I will just censor it.
Shiflets is going sideways.
Shirtless?
I've dropped models. I've dropped models. I've thrown dice, and we've all done it, and we're bloody embarrassed. But in that moment, it's one of those. It's like a cathartic release with your buddy. It's like, oh, dude, I feel you, man. I'm sorry. It sucks. I've been on that end, and you're like, yeah, I know. This is stupid. Why am I playing this stupid game? Rah, rah, rah. Because sometimes your personal life bleeds into that, and you're trying to get it, you lose it. But if you're going to a tournament, you need to separate that. You need to be focused and be in the now and be in the moment and be mindful of your opponent and just be aware that they may not be there for the same reason you are. But as long as you try to give them the best possible game that they can play, that you can do, make it fun for your opponent. And if you can't, then why are you here?
Yeah.
I just want to let that like ring in the silence a bit. Just like let everyone absorb that. Because no, it should be that simple.
It should be that simple. We as humans love to complicate things, though, don't we? Don't we? It's so silly. Okay, so way off topic. Think about the last time that you said to your very best friend that you love them.
Last Sunday?
Right? Now, think about most people. Do they do that?
Probably not. Because that's I can say that was a learned thing that I had to get into, because growing up wasn't the best, and the word love was like heavily tarnished, and then I learned what love was, and like with my friends, and I love my friends now, so it's easier for me now to say.
We dropped a friend of my son's off at his house a while ago, and as he was leaving, he said to my son, "I love you, man."
Oh.
And my 17-year-old son, 16, no, he's 17 at the time, he said, "I love you too." And I'm like, and when I was 17, I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was like the senior Chang yelling from the back of the class moment. Please tell me you get that one.
It's
no, nothing. Community, yes. And what was it? The senior Chang would always yell from the back of the class when anybody said something emotional. It's derogatory.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it. Not going to say
No.
it. But that's what you would get, right?
Right.
That's
Back
what it would
time,
happen.
Yeah. And we're talking about like,
so
if you want to talk about wrestling references, you have D-Generation X, and they're all like all the boys doing the crosses over.
Way back before that, yeah. But it's that's the concept, right? This hyper masculinity, and even with women, it would be the same thing. Now it's different, but the generation that are playing war games still don't get that. You don't share that emotional content with each other as much. Things I love about guys like Dave and yourselves, and a lot of players I've met, they get that. Saying "I love you, brother," or "I love you, man," or "I love you, sister," or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Saying "I love you" to somebody, it just opens up so many things, because you're now connected on a level, and it's platonic. It's not romantic. It's a different thing. It's just you're open, and you're spiritual, and you're honest, and you're there in the moment with them, right? You're caring about what happens to that person. And if you can look at it like that, even in Warhammer, even in your daily life, look at the other person as somebody who is deserving of love. It just changes the way you look at the entire world. So I know it's way off the Warhammer topic, but I'm happy to see that the next generation is understanding that, not like our generation, your generation, and then my generation especially didn't get that.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, walking up to a table and being emotionally invested in the other person's happiness is completely anathema to them. They have no concept of what that looks like, and it's extremely difficult to do so. So when we talk about modeling behavior, be that person who cares about the other person more than you care about your own victory. Suddenly they'll clue in, or they won't, and that's okay too.
But in the back of their head, you'll be that little voice.
Just that little, because it's just that little seed, right? What is it? From the mustard seed, right?
Yeah.
Right. Namaste, everybody. I'm just out there doing my thing. Full love.
Or a seed from garden, or Nurgle's garden,
Right? It's all it takes. From the tiniest little nurgling, the greatest unclean one grows.
Yes.
I mean, for anyone listening that maybe, your local scene isn't as positive as you want it to be, if you role model that and other people catch on to it, and maybe the worst person in your scene, the person that's like unpleasant to play with, eventually they find themselves as the only person like that. And then they have to make the choice if they want to keep playing or if they want to just pack it up. If you can change the tone of a community towards that positivity, eventually people get on board, because you can feel the difference when you're playing with someone who plays that way, and it completely changes the tone. It changes the nature of Warhammer, and it makes it so much more enjoyable.
You hit the nail on the head. That is absolutely exactly what it feels like when you're playing with someone who gets it. It's one of the reasons I love playing at a top tier competitive level. Players like Alex McDowell, John Lennon, and Nick Nenavati. Here I'm listing Art of War members. Even my local boy Kazra. Kaz and I have had some fantastic games, and we we had a round 5 game at Kippers where it was literally us versus the room because everybody wanted to come see the game between Kazra and JT, to the point where we had to police people away from our table. Yeah, because they were just coming up to see what was happening, and it was a 5-point game in the end. I pulled it out, but I put him to it, and his list was pretty tuned, and we had a fantastic match. But everybody wanted to see how we were playing because we're both known as players who people want to play with, and it was like a nice guy off. I've done Charity Hammer for so many years now as well, and we've had it's the nice guy round. Rich Kilton, fantastic player. He and I had an amazing game, absolutely amazing game, and it was literally the nice guy off because we're fun to play against because we both genuinely believe that the opponent's enjoyment is more important than our own.
Mm-hmm.
And if you both have that attitude, it's funny how you're both going to have a great game.
Have you played like John Lennon or like the
Have I played John?
Yeah.
Yes.
and Alex?
I came that close to beating him. Oh, I played Alex a few times, yeah. Yeah, played Alex a few times. I played John at Charity Hammer and almost beat him with Drukari into Synapse Tyranids.
Wow.
I had him for 4.5 turns, and it was the bottom of 5 that he finally won it. He drew no secondaries, and I drew everything I could score, and I was beating him quite handily, and it came down to literally one objective that he could clear. And I called my shot with a Heat Lance on a Reaver jet bike. I said, I have to do this. It's the only command point I have. It's the only way I can affect the outcome. And if I kill that Malanthrope, then this game is not you can't just finish the game. We have to roll it out. And he's like, yeah, no, you got to. That's what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
I hit it with a 6, wounded with a 6, and did 9 damage to his Malanthrope and picked it up. And that was the only moment where John actually broke that poker face.
I was going to say, did he have a little sweat?
I saw that moment where he went, and then it was back, and he went, okay. And he went into clinical, John, what do I have to do to win this game? He's such a joy to play and an amazing player.
Mm-hmm.
But I took him to task with Drukari, of all things. It doesn't matter what army you play if you play it well. There's a lot to be said for the player, not just necessarily the army.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, Alex just won the BC League Championship tournament this past weekend. I didn't get to play him, unfortunately. Came down to our round draw, who is paired where, and I ran into Patrick Greatbatch, I believe Patrick's name is, and his Chaos Space Marines that he went first with, and well, that wasn't good. They're so brokenly good, man. Oh my gosh. I got shot so many times. I had exit holes that were entrance holes. Like, it was just ridiculous. Sustained and lethal what now?
Did he have a blitz?
What?
And Hellbrew?
4. Well, the double Rhino Legionnaires and Chosen with the Chaos Lord for the Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Gross. 4 Blitz, double Warp Talons, double Mauler Fiends, Forge Fiends, the ones that shoot 3d3.
Right.
Yep.
The unkillable blob of accursed cultists, and cultists to hold his objective at the back.
Yep.
He went first, and I literally didn't have an answer. Eldar do not do well into Chaos Space Marines because of the sheer volume of sustained and lethal hits that can occur. Lethal hits into your stuff that actually has a toughness that's worth it, and sustained hits into T3 is you're just done. T-Suns as well. T-Suns with flamers. Oh, go hold that objective with your squad. They're gone. It's frustratingly difficult to play against. But that's part of playing tournament level. You have to find a way to win, and in that game, I needed to go first. It's simple, because he just was able to take control of the board, and I did my level best to weather it, but no, just couldn't do it. Happens.
That's your story.
Yep, that's it. And that story was I got my butt kicked. Is what it was.
Just want to be cognizant of time so we don't go too far. This is already going to be a longer episode, but
it's my fault. I just yammer.
No, this is great. There's been so much wisdom and knowledge to be gained from this. I hope everyone listening is just like
taking notes.
I don't know, in some kind of zen state of like philosophy around Warhammer right now.
Can you tell my wife that? Because she thinks I'm just nuts.
She can listen to the podcast.
Beautiful.
Actually, when we were in BC, I made a comment to Tack that I thought you were a wise and funny guy, and he was like, "You can't tell JP that. He's gonna start thinking that he is funny." I was like, "No, we had a great time. He's joking around the whole time." And Tack was just like, "You can't say it to him, though."
Tack's an interesting cat.
Oh.
Tack is an interesting cat. He's
Yeah.
the funny part is he's not competitive. He's so competitive. Oh my gosh. But he hides it really well.
Yeah.
I love him to death. He's a fantastic guy. But yeah, no, he's so competitive. He just doesn't show it. He and I have had some knockdown dragouts over the years. Did we show you the Siege Dreadnought, the Leviathan? That's stomping on a Venom?
No.
That's because of me. He did it just for me. We had a second round run in at like 4 tournaments straight, where I would just obliterate him every second round. There's nothing he could do about it. And then in like 8th and 9th, he kind of had my number a bit. And then it's been a real fun back and forth. That's for sure.
Where'd you guys meet?
I think I was at Wet Coast.
Ah.
I think it was at Wet Coast. He was playing, I want to say it was 7th edition. He was playing War Convocation,
Mm-hmm.
which was I don't know if you remember that. It was a detachment where all your upgrades were free for your AdMech, and you could bring a knight. Oh, yeah. Real great. And I was playing Yannari before they were called Yannari. I had Eldari Drukari combo where I could put Dark Reapers inside of Venom, and I could have all sorts of fun. It was neat, and that I think was the first time we played, and that was actually after I think it was my second knee replacement or my first knee replacement surgery, and I'm literally playing the game with an ice machine wrapped around my knee because I'd had surgery like 3 weeks before or something silly. A knee replacement, and I played the whole tournament on one leg. That was great. Shout out to Chris Jones. No, I was walking. I think I was walking, but shout out to Chris Jones who made sure that the hotel staff brought out he brought his own extension cord, like a real extension cord, so they could plug in the ice machine that I had, and then the hotel staff would grab me ice to refill it. It's just like a water recircling machine to keep it cool, so that it would keep my knee from swelling. I have an unfortunate allergy to ibuprofen, so I can't take anti-inflammatories for the most part, and the ones that I can take are atrocious. So I played that entire tournament whacked out of my mind on OxyContin.
Oh my god.
Oh, it only really showed in my first game, where I did stuff that made no sense. And my opponent, Rupert, he's been on the channel a few times. He talked to me about it. He's like, "Yeah, I don't know what you were thinking." I said, "Dude, I was stoned. Like, I have no idea what I was thinking." But it was fun to play like that. I play usually like that. Yeah, it helps.
I do want to ask, just to wrap up, are you a lore buff?
Oh, yes. Not as much as I used to be, because of course, like I said, I used to read a lot, so the White Dwarfs would come out, and then the Codex supplements would come out, and I would read voraciously. I slowed down on the Horse Heresy series just because I ran out of time. I don't even know where I am at in it now, but I'm really looking forward to picking that back up and finishing that off. But I love the lore, and the deep lore, the old lore. The Pepperidge Farm remembers lore. Like that's the stuff that I like. Some of the more modern stuff, I mean, it's like, oh, is that how that got retconned? I remember sitting with Bob in Spokane and arguing about Ara and Drazar, and how Ara, there was an actual Demon Prince Ara model, who, I don't know if you know who Ara is. So you've got Drazar, you've got Ara, and Ara was a striking scorpion who supposedly fell to chaos, and Karandras took over the striking scorpion shrine. Ara fell to chaos, and they believe that Ara is Drazar, who fell to chaos, who was corrupted. They retconned it so that corrupted by the Dark Elder, but originally it was this Phoenix Lord that fell to chaos, and there was a model that existed. There's a picture in a White Dwarf somewhere of a corrupted Chaos Phoenix Lord, which is kind of cool.
Very cool.
But then, of course, that all changed. Yeah, but that's really going deep. Like that's way back. But I love the lore. I absolutely love the lore. Some of my favorite lore are the Eldar specific lore and the Drukhari specific lore. Space Marines will find, oh look, another battle. Oh, they won. And there's some cool dramatic moments. Like I think Sevatar is one of my favorite characters. Like, dude literally punched the top of a fighter jet and said, "Fly me closer to that battle barge through space. I want to punch them with hit them with my sword." Did you read that in the night? Sorry, spoilers, anybody, if you haven't read it. But yeah, so Sevatar jumps on a friggin' fighter, grabs it, and the pilot's like, "What the hell?" And he's like, "Get me over there." That's cool.
He's brave. He's fearless.
Totally. That made me actually like Night Lords. I'm like, all right, I can get behind this.
What are some of your favorite stories?
Oh, some of the stories of, I mean, honestly, the Drukhari stories specifically, really love them because I think it's one of the most interesting factions in 40k. You look at the Eldar who are dying, and they know they're dying, and they're doing everything they can to live, and the Drukhari are just like, yeah, we found a way to live. You don't like it, but too bad. We do. And the idea of the homunculus covens specifically, that you can make a deal with a homunculus, and as long as part of your body gets recovered, that's literally what the Talos and Kronos do. They scour the battlefields for fallen people, for fallen elves, and then they bring them back and they stick them in the crystal coffins, and the pain and suffering that the homunculi inflict upon their subjects through experiments that are either paid for to turn you into a scourge, or experiments that are just for their own joy. That pain resonates into these crystal coffins, and it regrows the Kabalites that have paid to be regrown, so that their psychic essence is instead of being connected to the warp like most Eldar are, they're connected to the psychic suffering and the emotional suffering and emotional even the joy of other creatures. It's just creepy. Like, it's so weird. And I'm like, that's cool. Some of the orc fluff is a lot of fun too. You know, the purple orcs, you never see them because, well,
Sneaky.
they're sneaky. Blue's lucky and red goes faster, and you know, it's just the old stories are some of my favorite. I really love the Path series as well. Path of the Renegade, Path of the Outcast, the whole Eldar Path series was a lot of fun. A lot of the fluff I like is the Eldar stuff, because I really love the concept that Eldar don't care who or what you are. What you choose to be is what's important. And I've always thought that was neat. And then they've added more of that as the fluff has evolved. But at any time, an Eldar can feel the call of the Path of the Fire Dragon. They can feel the call of the Path of the Renegade, the Path of the Ranger, the Path of the Striking Scorpion, and they can just become that. It doesn't matter who you're born as. What matters is what you feel. And there's an Eldar hierarchy, and there's Eldar nobility and all that jazz too, but it really comes down to what you choose. And I love that. I think that's really kind of cool. Whereas the Imperium, you're shoved into a box and ground up.
Let's see if you survive or not.
If you're a guardsman, well, it's the reason you only have one las pack for your gun, because you're probably not going to need two.
Oh.
Big oof.
Big oof.
We should have you on talking about Eldar lore for a pot.
Oh, I love it. And there's some great battles and great stories. Like, the old codexes are wonderful for some of the fluff that exists. Because this little sidebar stories, and back in the way back days, they would have guest writers write these things, and they would have nothing to do with actual canon, which is the best stories. Those are the most fun, because you can be the old guy like me and go, I remember when, and that's always kind of fun. But I mean, there's just some great battles and stories and concepts and ideas, and I've had ideas for armies based on just stories in the fluff. I have an entire squad of racks that have a blue undercoat and a blue shade to their actual art, to their flesh, because they used to be Tau.
Oh.
And there's a story called the War of Dark Revelations, where there was a cultural exchange, which the Tau didn't quite understand. That cultural exchange meant we're going to take all of the fire warriors you give us and turn them into monsters. Oh yeah. Yeah, Nick and I have a good laugh about that one. He doesn't find it as funny as I do. But
I can't imagine what also happened to whatever planet they put the Dark Eldar on.
The which? Sorry.
Like the Dark Eldar that went to a Tau planet. They also
they did.
definitely got harvested.
Well, see, that's the brilliance about the War Dark Revelation is Urian Rakarth was like, we need this, and we need 15 ethereals, and we'll help you defend your planet. And they're like, okay, well, here's the Fire Warriors, but we're not giving you any ethereals. And he's like, no, that was the deal. And they went, no, we can't do that. And they hemmed and hawed. And then the Tau, fighting alongside the Dark Eldar, saw these, hey, that looks like Dave. Hey, isn't that Kevin? Like, they started to recognize these things. Went, wait a minute. And then got really upset and refused. And Rakarth is like, I'm telling you. And then they tried to attack them thinking that's where they were. And they weren't. It was all fake. And they sent their fleets and whatever and their ships and their warriors to go fight where they thought the Dark Eldar were. Meanwhile, the Dark Eldar are in the city stealing everybody.
Wow.
And taking them back to Commonwealth. Oh, yeah. It's so... just, they're bastards, and I love it. Everybody thinks they're evil. No, they're just their own kind of good. Their own kind of moral. That's all.
I have heard that they make the Night Lords shudder. Ooh.
Which is kind of cool, right? But that... I mean, I love horror movies.
Mhm.
I love bad horror movies
Yeah.
because they're just so fun to like. When I was a kid, I used to get scared at the Thriller video for crying out loud. Like I was just scared. Now I love horror movies. I don't love the super gory stuff because that's just boring. That just doesn't take effort.
Mhm.
But psychological horror, body horror. That whole concept of that guy's got a tentacle growing out of his chest. Ooh, hey, how would I model that? I love that. That I dig. And so that's what my whole army looks like. And it's fun. And I love that aspect of it. So that's what I really bring forward to the table. It's kind of fun.
Awesome. Any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
We've covered so much. Like, holy crap. I just keep running my mouth and I feel like I've kind of dominated and I feel really bad for that.
No, not at all. It just means that we want to invite you more because you have so much to share.
I love it. I appreciate talking with both of you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I enjoy it. And I wish everybody happiness on the tabletop. May you always roll sixes. Unless you need to roll ones. And may you always roll ones unless you need to roll sixes. It's go out there and play on. I mean, that's really our goal is to inspire people to play and to have fun at what you're doing. And if you're not having fun, maybe look at why. Because I guarantee that 9 times out of 10, the reason you're not having fun is your expectations don't match what your capabilities are. And that's a big oof for a lot of players. We all can't be world champions. We all can't be number 1 in the universe. Someone has to lose. And if you're comfortable with losing your games but having fun doing it, you're going to have a better Warhammer experience. This game is complex as hell. It's hard to win. It's hard to be consistently good at it. Even the best players lose. So have fun playing. And if it's hobbying, if it's lore, it doesn't matter. Just have fun. This is supposed to be enjoyable. Some of us have made it into a job.
Or a podcast.
Or a podcast, right? But it's about having
Yes.
fun. So make sure to have fun. That's the best. Go out and have fun and let your dice tell stories.
He said the line.
Incredible.
He said the line.
He did. He said the thing.
I said the thing. I didn't say slobberknocker yet. Oh, no, I did.
And he drinks his coffee.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to Chaos Divided wherever you're listening from, and you can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Chaos Divided 40K. If you're a fan of us and want to join our growing Wholesome Hammer community, you can find us at patreon.com/Chaos Divided 40K and support the show. And if you'd like to connect with us directly, what's your Instagram, JT, so folks can...
JT Custom Paintworks
With K's.
with 2 Ks and an E and a silver skull because it's the 80s.
And you can find at Nurgle_Snurgle and at Blushing Noise Marine on Instagram and YouTube. And until next time, bye-bye.
Ciao for now. They can't hear you wave.
I know. Bye, everybody. I'm just waving for you guys. It's kind of fun.